So this is a big deal. And this, come on, man, this is what makes it fun. You know
It
what I
is.
mean?
Yeah.
Inventing the future, man, it's hard. Okay, jump out the building. Sometimes it works. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you just got to go for it, man.
I'm here with Bob Hertzberg. He's been the leader of the California Assembly. He's actually finishing up his last term there. He's going to be hopefully moving on and getting elected to the LA Board of Supervisors, which is a really big deal, largest county in the entire country. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's an important issue, and I'm glad to spend some time with you.
Yeah, exactly. I think the first place to start actually is going to be, let's talk about your experience. You've actually been very interested in blockchain. This isn't a new thing for you. Kind of how did you stumble across blockchain?
Well, first, let me just correct the record a little bit, if I could, if it would be appropriate. But
sure.
I served as Speaker of the California Assembly 20 years ago, and left government, traveled the world, took company public, and been very involved around the world in the climate change, clean tech sector. I came back to the Senate and became majority leader of the Senate. So both leader of both the Senate and the Assembly, and I'm leaving my term now because we have term limits in California. But the reason I became interested is, look, certainly I have a lot of friends in the tech space. And as much as you suggest in your intro about California, that what I found, quite frankly, as a legislator, given how the politics works, is it's very hard to get innovation and new ideas. So much of the infrastructure built around politics is around looking backwards. I always like to talk about in the days when there was a telegraph company. I'm sure the CEO of telegraph company was real powerful. And when the telephone came in, everybody says, well, what puts my people out of work, and it puts my line workers and the people that do Morse code out of work, and blah, 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 blah. And so to shift, and so much of the internet has been so challenging. I'm the one in California who spent the last number of years working on the privacy issues, dealing with the internet and the like. And, I saw just from my own friends in the space how critical blockchain is and how much more secure it is than the traditional methodology. And so many people think about blockchain. There's kind of two comments I have on it. One, they think about only the concept of crypto, which is one small piece of the blockchain. It has much greater dynamics than that. And two, I think the name is crappy. What's a blockchain, right? And so what Steve Jobs told us is branding is so much important, and the interface with the customer. And so, I thought it is very, very difficult to get anybody's attention because the community is not organized politically. Your community, you might have your world on the economic side, you're dealing with Wall Street and all the other issues, but you're not engaged in the politics. And so there's not lobbyists and there's not organizations. And we live in a world, unfortunately, in politics. Well, who's your sponsor? Well, I was doing it on my own. So I said to myself, how can I'm a member of the Tech Caucus. You'd think with the Tech Caucus in California, these people are on the cutting edge. And when I introduced my first blockchain bill, I'm sitting in a meeting with one of the senators, and he goes, what's blockchain? These guys think it's the fence around your swimming pool. They didn't know. And my whole purpose in introducing my first bill back in 2015 or 16, whatever I did, I just wanted to be able to stand on the Senate floor and to be able to explain how it works to senators because they just don't know. One of the most important messages to your community that I can deliver is get involved, educate. We'll talk about that more. And so I said, okay, how can I get people's attention? So the first bill that I did had to do with the distributed ledger for corporations, right? And the idea was, how could I get that done? And so there was a problem in Orange County, down in the south of where I'm in Los Angeles, where people were stealing money, and then there was other problems in Northern California where someone was stealing money. And I figured if you could create an articles of incorporation that says your shareholding certificate is on a ledger, then when the bank goes to open a bank account, because how do you steal money? You get a copy of the articles of incorporation. You phony up a stock certificate, you go to the bank and you do a resolution, and you steal checks from your employer and you just put them in a mirror image account. Well, if you had a distributed ledger, you couldn't do that because the bank would want to show that you were a shareholder, that you could do this. And I was able to do it on a voluntary basis, but to try to just get people's attention. And I used the fraud that happened in two very big public instances as a way to make that happen. I'm trying to engage the folks that are the app writers, the people that are the creative people in the private sector, in the government. There's trillions of bits of information that the government has, and there's no interrelationship. We don't talk to each other. So I did another bill, which was basically I required all the over 5,000 subdivisions of government in LA County to post all the apps that they use, to post all the systems that they use. And it was very difficult. People were like, why are you doing that? You're just some nerd guy. Why do you care about that stuff? Well, the way I did it was I got the firefighters to sponsor the bill because the firefighters wanted to know on each of these places when they went to local jurisdictions to find maybe they get a pay raise and find out what systems they use. And what ended up happening was because of the power of the firefighters, I was able to put this in place, not-for-profit inventoried all this, and I started to get some app writers to start engaging in this stuff, trying to figure out the marriage between government and the tech sector in a way, because there were so many other things going on. Just few of many examples I can share with you, but to try to break through the difficulties. And in each instance, not having people to help me because I had to just do it my own. People said, oh, here comes Hertzberg again with one of his crazy ideas. But that's how you prime the pump and get people interested and move beyond the notion of crypto into the whole importance of blockchain. We're now seeing private companies doing it for supply chains, and we're starting to see more. And I just think we're at the very beginning of what this power of the blockchain can be in terms of transforming some of the challenges of the internet.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely true, and the innovation is awesome. I also think, you know, being the guy at the party that tells everybody about crypto, that sounds like kind of what you are, with blockchain and with the politicians. And I think that's really awesome because we all know what that feels like when you first get interested. It's very, immersive, and you want to push the technology and you just want to tell people about it because it's so significant. And I think really kind of what you're saying is that blockchain is the introduction. This is how we get more politicians involved in understanding the true kind of output of the technology. And then the crypto sector certainly has its role to play as well. But the politicians are going to be much more accepting of blockchain first.
That's right. And you build the foundation. For example, labor unions really want to make sure that their employees aren't cheated. Why can't we do smart contracts using blockchain? That here's a way where you're introducing something that has value to people that are in the political sector. You've got to figure out elegant ways to make that work.
Yeah, and I think the bill, when I came out to Sacramento, I was supposed to meet with you, but you had like a last second thing you had to fly off for, and I met with your chief of staff, and we looked at the digital records bill that you guys had. We gave some input on that, and talked about what we thought was good, what maybe it could turn into. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, because I think that was a pretty big win.
Yeah, another simple example. It was so hard. I found some clerk in Northern California to help us, and you helped. And the like, but to try to marriage certificates, death certificates, you listen to this. Like, I'm the old guy. I'm the senior guy. I'm like one of the senior statesmen around the place. And here I am with the new ideas. And the young Turks are scared. And I was at the privacy committee and the staff was going, well, this is horrible. This could result in fraud. You schmuck. It's exactly opposite. It doesn't result in fraud. It's a way to be able to save money, make it more convenient, make it more secure, whether it's a marriage certificate or death certificate. Actually, I wanted to do a bill. If you listen to this, I met with the Prime Minister of Vanuatu. If you know where Vanuatu is in the South Sea Islands, by the Solomon Islands and by.
I'm shaking my head, yes, but I have no idea.
It's Vanuatu. It's like 250,000 people. Yeah. And they were putting their entire title company, all their real estate records on the blockchain. But when I went and started talking to the title companies, I'd put them out of business. Right? I mean, that's one of the things that we're going to do. The credit card companies go through the financial sector, start thinking about all the people who are making a lot of money as interim people, and you can create trusted networks, and you can create trusted currencies, and you can create systems that are easier and faster and more trusted. But it's hard to invent the future, man. It's hard.
Yeah, it is. We've been trying to map out the future on this channel for a long time, and sometimes we get wins, but it's just like anything else that you kind of become an expert in. The more you get into it, the more you know what you don't know. And then this is the kind of thing where you start realizing like true full adoption and things like that. Like, it's further off than I think a lot of people want to think. If you would ask me in 2017, I'd say 5 years. You ask me now, 5 years later, I say 10, 15 years, maybe, so, maybe in 10, 15 years, who knows what it'll be. Hopefully it'll happen by then.
Once it catches on. I mean, look at how cell phones have caught on. When I was Speaker of the House, we didn't have smartphones. We had those old flip phones. We didn't have flip phones. We had those pagers that we had. You think it takes a long time, but it actually, the adoption is pretty cool. This education piece, I can't stress enough to educate politicians, and don't educate them in your own thinking. Educate them in what's important to them. What do I care about as a politician? I want to protect poor people. Well, how can you use this to protect poor people? I want to protect labor contracts. How do you do that? And begin to show the relevancy in their world. And then all of a sudden it opens up. and the crypto opens up and all these other aspects of what happens. And, oh, wait a second, look at all the money these credit card companies are making on everybody on these transactions. You're not really paying for something. Somebody else is paying, and you're paying these fees, and everybody's controlling the money. And all of a sudden, in terms of costs, it changes the game. And also, you've seen some of the big companies, this whole supply chain issue, whether you have, some product that is defective or some food product that's problematic. All of a sudden, you now can know exactly where it came from in terms of the recalls, the financial benefits. You're starting to see some of the big co's getting it, and then how that rolls into all the other elements of what we have to be doing. But you got to start at that level. You got to educate politicians at every level of government. And so, here I am at the state, speaker and majority leader in both Senate and Assembly, working with Gavin Newsom, who totally gets this stuff. This governor gets it. He gets it. He's in the game. He loves this stuff. It's just hard to put it across the line. And now I'm coming into the county, which, as I say, is larger than the state of Michigan. And our job at the county is basically to implement all the crap that we do at the state. So I'm going to be at the nuts and bolts level. I'm going to collaborate with so many of the groups to figure out the best thinking and figure out a strategic plan of how to make that happen, how to educate more people. I'm doing a whole school on this stuff here in LA that I want to do and educate folks on it and see how it's relevant to them. So this is a big deal. And this, come on, man, this is what makes it fun. You know what I mean? Yeah. Inventing the future, man, it's hard. Okay, jump out the building. Sometimes it works. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But you just got to go for it, man. You got to go for it.
Absolutely.
Right? That's what you're doing. BitBoy, man. Come on.
It's time to not be scared, and let's put stuff out there and see what can happen. And, that's what my evolution, where we're, get involved in politics and legislation or in regulation, like, you just got to get out there and do it. And you got to get in front of it, and you got to make some stands. And I think that definitely when it comes to the education, it is the most important piece. So when we actually have, I wrote a book, it comes out January 17th.
I heard about that. I got to see it.
Yeah. Catching Up to Crypto. The idea is that when someone wants to learn about crypto, 70% of people go to YouTube. Well, just to get entry into a beginner video on YouTube and understand it, you already need to know some things, some terminology and some perspective. And so basically what this book does is it catches people up to crypto. So now you can go watch any YouTube video or any niche that's talked about, you'll understand at least on a simple level. And I think that's very important. We also have our BitLab Academy, which, hopefully one day we're going to be able to get this into schools and accredited, and things like that. We're rolling out a 2.0 of it. It's going to be the most immersive online education course for crypto that exists on the planet. And so
man, that's cool.
Yeah, we're really super excited about it because education is
smart.
That's the reason why I got in Bitcoin in 2012 and I sold it all in 2013 because I didn't know what I was invested in. And I didn't have the education and there weren't the educational pieces around.
Man, you lost a lot of money, pal.
Millions, if not billions, to be honest with you, with how much I could have put in at that time. But you know what? I don't kick myself for it because I love what I do now. And, it's all about the journey and entrepreneurship and things are great, but, definitely pushing.
And where we are now is peanuts compared to where we're going to be. I'm telling you, it's just keep dogging it, man. You're doing the right thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, you mentioning Gavin, I think some people around the country might be, surprised to hear that he's very pro crypto. And this is what I'm hearing as well from other sources. And I think that people have looked at crypto as kind of, in some ways, it's been a partisan issue for some people. And I think what people are realizing is it's not. It's a bipartisan issue. And you got bipartisan support for bills you've done in there around blockchain because it actually kind of satisfies what both parties are about. That one side is, capitalism, free market, innovation. Other side is, socioeconomic disparity and making sure everybody is treated equally and people are able to get funds.
But it does both. It protects everybody.
Yeah.
It protects everybody. It's not a partisan issue.
And to see California be able to work in a bipartisan way, on these bills, it really impressed me. I couldn't believe it. Well, I didn't know what to really expect when I went out there to the House, but in Sacramento. But when I was there, I was like, wow, like these people are on it. Like they really, really understand.
Well, it was so much fun. I was the majority leader of the Senate. The majority of the Assembly was the fella, Ian Caldwell, if you know who he is. And so he's like was one of the youngest members ever, and I'm one of the oldest members. And we partnered up. We created, one of the issues that they were concerned about was, oh God, this stuff's too scary. So what we ended up doing was forming a bill we joined together on, and we formed a study group at Berkeley. We brought everybody together, and these ideas that came out with respect to marriage certificates and death certificates, like those came directly from that group, because somehow, you've got to get these validators and everybody else in the game as part of the kabuki in politics. But so much fun to work with him. Esteban Nunez, if you know him, he's phenomenal. Another young, brilliant mind and stuff. So I'm excited to work with these guys and to partner up with them and share my experience and wisdom and creativity and entrepreneurship with their ability, their future forward thinking.
Yeah. I've gotten to know Esteban pretty well, and I really like him. So,
and that cat is a real deal, man. Yeah. He is an absolute rock star.
Yeah. He came and visited me in Denver when I was out there. I think he snuck away from a bachelor party and nobody knew it. He flew to Denver and then flew back to Chicago just to come and hang out for a little bit because, we were talking about some policy stuff and it was important. And he's a go-getter. Now, when it comes to, we've actually been working together with SJR 16, which is our Financial Stability and Education Act, or Financial Education and Stability Act of 2022, which gets rid of state accredited investor laws. Why do you think that this is an important fight?
Well, because the question is, if you can educate people, look, what are the rules? Look at all the old rules. Look, for example, at the issue of your credit reports. Those credit reports today don't need to look at audited financial statements and all this other stuff. They were built around a completely old structure that doesn't work anymore. I was talking to a banker, one of the largest banks in the world, and he told me with technology today, we can get a much better predictive factor on what people do and what their credit worthiness is. Look at the Grameen Bank that started in India, the same thing with social pressures and the like. And so what's happened is we built this architecture in the 30s as a result of the Depression and how to protect investors, which are critically important. No question about it. Those are important. But the rules have changed. The ability to do diagnostics have changed. The ability to assess risk has changed. The ability to make regulatory change. So, my general view about that is you got to follow the innovation. And so much of this stuff is built on yesterday, and we've got to figure out what it looks like, and we've got to protect investors. We got to protect little guys, no question about it. But some of that stuff's just yesterday's news, and it requires a second think.
Yeah, I think you hit it, right on the head there. And when we look forward at where this is going with regulation, I think people understand, like, yes, there is going to have to be regulation in crypto in America. Some places they might just be free for all, but in America, we do things a certain way. And the important thing to me is, like, we can't give up too much about the essence about what this is about. And you really get it. I hope people really understand how much you get it when you're talking about removing the credit. We don't need credit card processors in the future. That's just
they're stealing money. Their middlemen are just taking the vig.
Yeah.
There's so much vig in the process. It's unbelievable. Yes. But you're going to fight a war because those people are going to find out that you're stopping the rotation of the earth. I've had some big fights of groups where you change up the game. But, look at Blockbuster. Hey, man, those old videotapes are gone, right? Look at all the changes.
Safest job in America in 1995, Blockbuster manager.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, so many examples of that stuff, who has alarm clocks anymore, who does, so many things have changed. But the big difference is when the private sector does it, sometimes people file bankruptcy or whatever, companies come and go, investors shift. The challenge with government versus the private sector is that those private sector entities, as they're on their way out and dying, come to government to save them. Oh, you're saving jobs, saving this. And it becomes much harder. And the argument you have to make, the education you have to make, the role governments don't want to pick winners and losers, becomes very sophisticated. And so, and the people who are leaving hire a lot of lobbyists. They're very powerful, and the world's changing. Oh, we want certainty. We want this, we want that. Well, guess what? There's no such thing as certainty. The only certainty is uncertainty. My dad was a great constitutional lawyer, and he always used to say, de minimis he used to say, when the reason for the rule ceases, the rule ceases. I used to say it in Latin, but I can't remember the Latin phrase. But it always informed my mind. When the reason for the rule ceases, the rule ceases. And so what happens is, so often, whether it's in regulatory worlds, you've got to continue to invent the future. You got to continue to roll forward. You got to continue to think creatively, and you've got to always course correct and understand what's the reason for the rule. And if it's no longer there, Who the hell cares? Time to
Yeah.
change, man. Time to
Well,
change.
we just had, I think the SEC made a ruling on CD-ROMs a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, seriously, no kidding. They finally made some kind of regulation on CD-ROMs. Like there's looking in the past. Let's move forward. So,
That's right.
I think that these are important conversations that definitely have to happen. Looking forward to hopefully you getting elected in LA for the Board of Supervisors, and we're going to be doing our book tour January,
Good.
February.
Come
LA
on
is going to
out,
be,
man. I'll meet
yeah,
with you. But let me tell you something, man. I don't know if I'm gonna win or lose. Forget the election once I'm in, but I'm gonna light it up. I'm
yeah,
gonna light it up. I'm gonna push the envelope. I'm gonna ask the tough questions. I'm gonna bring people together to collaborate. All across. There's so many brilliant minds that just haven't engaged. I'm trying to make, as they say in Yiddish, I'm a Jewish guy. They say in Yiddish, the shidduch, the marriage between the intellectuals, the creative minds, the inventors with government to try to figure out a way forward on all of these various issues. And I'm
yeah.
excited about it. And look, you may win them, you may lose them, but there's honor in trying.
Yeah, I tell people in crypto all the time, this is a war we're in. There's a lot of battles along the way. We're going to win some, we're going to lose one, but ultimately this technology is financial and technological evolution. And ultimately it's superior to what we have now, and it will win out. It's just a matter of time.
I don't know if you've ever read some of the books on the history of money. I mean, you think about
Certainly.
it, right? I mean, I give you a piece of paper and you accept that piece of paper
Exactly.
for value for an exchange versus a bushel of wheat versus a sheep or something, right? We actually got something that was tangible. Think about how the whole thing with money, and we started with silver and gold and what that meant. Even who cares what silver and gold? You can't eat silver or gold,
Right.
right? You can't feed your family, you can't protect your family with it. And so we've evolved in a very big way. And if you just think about there's a number of books I've read about that the history of money and how that actually works.
Yeah.
And it's all about the trust system. It's why what happened. We came to downturn in 2008 with Lehman Brothers. The trust system broke down. All the exchanges were built based upon faxes. You got a fax. You were General Motors treasurer. You needed an extra $68 million to make payroll because money from car sales weren't coming in. You sent a fax to Lehman Brothers. They wired the money in based upon a fax. All of a sudden, it worked perfectly because it's based upon trust. And beyond trust, there was value was nothing else except trust that you will do something and make it happen. And all those things were bits of electronic transmission of a wire. And that became the ability to make paychecks. I mean, we think we're so used to what the current system is that as we think about what tomorrow might look like, we're nervous about it. But think about it today, right?
Yeah. Well, I think if you think about the evolution of digital currency and digital technology, digital assets, it actually kind of makes sense to our mind, but it's scary because we haven't done it before. Right. Imagine the guy's face the first time ever in history someone says, "Hey, you know that stuff I owe you? Here, take this piece of paper."
Yeah, I know. Exactly.
Yeah, like
exactly.
that's a much
or
bigger
think
leap
if you
of
go
faith.
to the bank account, and I mean, what is your bank account? It's what happened with the rush on banks in the late 20s with the depression, right? People they took paper out, which was kind of funny. They took paper out, but think today, if all of a sudden there was an electronic storm, and all of a sudden all the electronic records at your bank disappeared.
Yeah.
Your $17 billion you had in cash in the bank is gone. There's no history of it. What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, that argument that people make sometimes is so funny to me, where they're like, well, yeah, but like, what happens if it gets hacked or blah, blah, blah? Like, we have no permanence within the systems that are built right now. Right. Blockchain solves the permanence problem.
Correct.
Like,
Correct.
We did a video called "The Internet is Rotting Away." There was a great documentary about permanence. The internet was built for connectivity, not for permanence. If you look at Supreme Court justice decisions, so many of them have references in gigantic important cases that go to dead links now because the websites where they got the reference from, they're gone. They don't exist anymore. So imagine a judge having to make a really tough decision on a precedent without having the reference. It's a very dangerous thing, and blockchain solves this. So, this has been an awesome talk for sure. I think people are going to get a lot out of this, and I hope they see.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I hope they see that not just you, but also California is, some people in America may be surprised. They have certain ideas about California, but it's very innovative in the blockchain world, and they're moving forward. And I was very excited to see it and look forward to, continue to working with you and, come out in LA to do the book tour. Definitely would like to see you and meet with you and, excited to really be pushing education and blockchain forward.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it much.
Absolutely.
Good.
So, all right, we'll talk to you later. Thanks.
All right, baby.